Well. Look who's here.
Hi,
Hi,
Boo.
Aiko.
Hi, Jasmine. How are
How are
you?
you?
Oh, you know,
One of them days.
it's Tuesday. Tuesdays are my long days. Like they start at like 6 a.m.
Oh my God. 6
Yeah,
a.m.
my first conference call is at 6 a.m. when I'm on the West Coast, which is most of the time. So my first client call is at 6 a.m. on Tuesday,
Oh
and
my
then they
God.
just kind of go from there.
Oh my God. I'm one of those people, I'm a firm believer in I get up early because I feel as though this doesn't apply to you because if you get calls at 6 a.m. already, okay? But in my
Mhm.
mind, I think if the earlier I get up, the more control I have over the day. Because as the clock ticks, I lose control because now around 7 or 8, someone else is in control of my day and then it just runs away from me. So I get up
Yeah, yeah,
super
yeah,
early.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm up at like 4:30 in the morning by
Yeah, I
myself.
get up. I'm normally up around between 4:45 and 5. And when you're younger, your whole conversation was like, never gonna get up that early. But it's like the older you get, the earlier
Man.
you
I
wake up. So
never thought
I
about that, but that's true. That's so
I am
true.
I get up at between 4:44 and 5. Um, Now, I will say that applies to the West Coast
Yeah.
because this is where I live, right? When I'm in Dallas or New York, I will get up around like 6 or 6:30 just because my body is used to getting up at 5. But
Right.
if I'm in
Just a little
that city
different.
for longer than 4 days, I'm getting up at 5. And
Mm.
then when I go back home, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm waking up.
Like, where is the balance? And it's so interesting you should say that. Well, first, let me say this. So, I created Woman to Woman last year. And the reason
Okay.
I did it was I felt every year in this particular month, we celebrate and laud all of the women who came before us. And I was always of the mindset, well, what about the women who are like giants among us right now, right? That we see all the time. And we never really give them their flowers. We never really give them the attention and the light that they deserve. And so I started saying things like, I really want to talk to people that no one is looking at. I want to talk to people that might not be in the spotlight on stage and maybe they don't have 3 million followers, but if it weren't for them, shit wouldn't be turning. Okay? And so, because I feel like really it's the guts of those kind of people that are the engines of the machine that everyone takes advantage of. You just make the assumption it's going to be there. And if this person decides that they don't get up at 4:30 or 5, baby, the machine ain't rolling.
Something doesn't work.
And so, I did it last year. It was fantastic. I had some of the most amazing just girl chat,
Yeah.
about life, about where we are with ourselves and about our experiences and love and greatness and victories and failures and all the things. And
Right.
when I met you, I said, if I do woman to woman again this year, I must have this woman. And let me tell
Oh,
you why. I'm not bullshitting, I'm serious.
okay.
I had
Okay.
the pleasure of meeting you through a beautiful soul, Deanna.
Yes.
And from the moment I met you, you have like this quiet but powerful, striking, strong but shh that you can't even explain, right? Now I know you a quiet fire. I know you got some fire, right? But when you walk in the room, it's an effortless elegance that you exude. And I thought if I wanted to describe with a picture what I would consider to be not perfect, but almost what if I were going to describe a Black woman, a sister, it would be you.
Oh,
I'm not even
that's
kidding. From how down to
amazing.
earth you are, the brilliant mind that you have, because let's face it, some of the most amazing marketing and strategies that have been put forth, collabs between some of the most influential, companies that we can think of. You, the one who've done it. And yet, it's still, you walk in the room like, I've arrived. If you know, you know. And it's the coolest shit I've ever seen. And then you sit down, hair perfectly coiffed, outfit slayed to the gods, but then you're so sweet and you're so humble. And I'm like, I have to talk to her. If for nothing else, to get inside and see what makes Ayiko tick. Like, what is it that moves you? How did you get from music to here? And what does that mean in your life when you where you are now as a woman? I don't have to tell you being a sister in this in any industry, first of all, but anything
Yes,
to do with entertainment and the world and whether they like you, whether they want to buy into you. It's rough. How did you
it's
become the person that you are?
um, that's always like a super loaded question. So, I mean, here's the thing that I say a lot. There are a lot of people, women who I admire, who knew exactly what they were supposed to do and who they were supposed to be from the time that they were born. Let me be perfectly clear, that was not me. Uh, Not me at all. I I had such a completely different thought of who I would be in my younger life. In my younger life, I assumed I would be, a corporate attorney, just going through life under the radar. I like to argue a point, but
Mm.
want to argue a point, right? So I like to, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is how it's going to get done, and here are the reasons why we got to do it this way. So my assumption was is that I was going to use that as who, because I was always a negotiator, right? So I
Got it.
negotiated through everything. And so that's where I figured out I would be. Maybe a sports attorney, maybe that's kind of where I would be. And none of that panned out. I ended up working in Silicon Valley. It was at the forefront. Email wasn't even a thing. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
dating myself because email wasn't a thing, internet was not a thing. I worked at a company that was the first version of Apple. It was called Network Computing Devices, and what it did was it merged a whole bunch of windows together so that you can
Wow.
do everything on one camera, on one dumb unit, because it didn't have a brain. 'Cause that's what they called it. And then the very next thing after that came Apple and Apple computers, and basically our business kind of went through the door. So that's what I was doing. I worked in Silicon Valley as just a regular, and then I moved to, after I got divorced, I moved to LA, and I started to like just work at different places. I'm going to be honest with you. I worked for the Muscular Dystrophy Association in event planning. I worked at in accounting at Universal Music Group. I worked in accounting, basically where I paid the royalties of several people. So I would see all these names of people, and I would be in charge of paying the
Of the
royalties.
checks.
Of the checks. I wrote the checks. I made sure that their taxes were done properly. And so I started to get to know people's names from that. And my cousin worked in the industry. So I got invited to music
Hmm.
industry events. And then I met Deanna.
Who's
And
amazing, by the way. She's
well,
amazing.
she is, but she's gonna get mad that I'm gonna tell this story
Oh,
because
tell the juicy version.
the first time I met her, she shaded me so hard, and
Shame the devil. No, she did not.
she shaded me so hard. She was like, and who are you? And she gets angry when I tell this story. But anyway, long story short, by the end, we ended up going down to Urban Network, and I was introduced into the real world of music by
Mm.
going to Urban Network, right? Where I saw Beyonce, who wasn't Beyonce
She
yet.
was in the
She was
lobby
Destiny's
singing. I was there
Child
too.
in that room, that little conference room. I mean,
Yeah,
when I tell people I saw Destiny's Child in a conference room in the middle of Palm Springs, they look at me and tell me, "You no, you didn't," but I
it's
did.
true. I
So
remember.
I got introduced to the world of music through Urban Network, and like I said, my cousin worked in the industry, and she hooked me up with a gentleman who Philip Atwell, who did music videos. And that right there, the introduction into doing music videos, is what I would say set me on my path to an actual career, which, let me be clear, did not happen until I was in my 30s.
It's so interesting
So,
though. It's so interesting because I truly believe that every step you take, even when you are oblivious, right, to the direction that you're going, really is the direction that you're supposed to be going. You just don't know it. And it takes a
right,
huge aha moment to say, oh my God, all this time I thought I was, wasting my time. I was wasting my talent. I didn't know what I'm doing. When the universe knew exactly what it was doing. It knew what it was doing when you got introduced to Deanna, she shaded you. I
exactly,
I can't
exactly.
wait to hear
And
about this one.
yeah, and so what I can also say is that from that moment when I went to go work with Phil and really got introduced to the way music video works, the way production works, the way all of those things kind of work, um, it put me on a learning journey on a completely different kind of path. And then through Deanna, you talk, there's a saying that there are five people that are the most influential people in your life, right? And those people are either good influences on why you become who
Right.
you are, but they could also be negative influences on who you are. Deanna is one of my five, right? And
Mm.
so Deanna Williams introduced me to the world. And when I say the world, because when she knew what I did, which was music videos, she called every single major record label and said, "Home, dude, I need you to give Ayiko a Black Woman's Minute." And
Yeah.
when I tell you, from Ruben Rodriguez to Sylvia Rome, to Kedar Massenberg, all of those people stopped when Deanna made that phone call and gave me a Black Woman's Minute to hear what it was that I was trying to sell and what it was that I was trying to do.
I
And
think that's
from
important. I think that's important to take a beat right there because I sometimes think that we forget the importance that we may have in terms of the weight of it, her ability to her it probably meant nothing to make a phone call, but for
right,
someone else it meant the world. It changed the trajectory of your life. And so I think it's very important that we always remember that synergistic energy that
yes,
happens when you meet certain people who may or may not become one of your good five. Either way, good or bad,
right,
it's a good thing, right? It's necessary.
correct,
But I think that's
correct.
important that we recognize that and that we do what we can to then turn around and make sure that that
That we
mundane ability
100%, but that we also
100.
recognize that when, if in any given moment, wherever you are in your journey of whatever it is that you're doing, you have influence over something.
Mhm.
And the fact that you have influence over something, you don't need to wait till you get here to give somebody else a pick up a phone call for somebody else or
Yeah.
to share some information with somebody else. And so Deanna made that phone call for me, and from that moment on, we've been attached at the hip. But she also introduced me to Kathy Hughes, and
Mhm.
from getting in, being in the music video industry, that led me to working at Davy Brown Entertainment. And Davy Brown Entertainment, I did music marketing, which was more than just music videos, but really adding the marketing aspect of music and really understanding how you can use music to sell things and
To
how
sell
the
anything.
connection through music, entertainment, and brands is such a very incestuous relationship, and that could be mutually beneficial for both sides. Brands connect themselves with celebrities, music artists, and influencers in order to get into places where they couldn't get on their own because of whatever reason, because the brand doesn't, lack of awareness, or folks in that industry didn't know this brand was actually a brand that was for them. And so understanding how to get to the, for lack of a better word, ethos of a brand and understanding the core values of any brand, and then connecting that with the core values of a celebrity influenced music artist, movie property, is basically how you create synergistic partnerships that
Yeah.
could, you know, defy money,
Yeah,
for lack
without
of a
question.
better
And I will say this, I think regardless of your station, I think we all are our own brand, right? And you
yes.
said a couple of things. You talked about branding and strategy and music and that incestuous relationship, which really applies to us. So, as Aiko's brand, what would be the genre of music and what would be the song that would define the brand of Aiko and who she is and the parts that we don't know?
I mean, I'm a core R&B girl at my soul. Um, I think, it's funny because we're in the process of, we're about to do our an agency summit where our entire agency is actually coming together for the first time ever,
Oh,
right, this week. And each department has to do their little walk up song. Now, who my walk up song is for my department is completely different than who my walk up song would be as a person,
oh,
which
okay.
is really interesting. My walk up song for our department, because I lead the account team, is not like us, because the account
Because
team the account team has to manage everything. All of the anything that's good, we don't get credit for. Everything that's bad is our fault.
that's how it
We run the
goes.
floor, we run the ball. We are the point guards of the agency. And the ball comes to us, we throw the ball to different departments, we take the ball. Sometimes we score, sometimes we let somebody else score. But at the end of the day, there's nobody else that does everything that we have to do. So, Not Like Us is that song. But for
Perfect.
Aiko, my song, I would say, is Just Fine. That has been my
Oh, Mary J.
song ever since
Blige.
that I ever heard it, because it just lays out, who I am as a person. No matter what, I'm gonna be just fine, right? When I look
Yes.
for the words
In
right
the
now because
mirror,
they're
it
going out of
doesn't
my
matter.
head, right? When I look at the mirror, it doesn't matter because I'm going to be just fine. And I think at the end of the day, and that was something that, if I have to be honest with you, I had to learn and I had to grow into the fact that I was going to be just fine. Because when you get into places, sometimes in order for you to grow, you always have to be uncomfortable. I always
Correct.
say, if you are comfortable in whatever it is that you're doing, then you're not doing enough. If you don't feel a little uneasy as you move into anything, then you are not pushing the envelope far enough,
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes when you're in a completely different space and place, and there is nothing but uneasiness, sometimes you kind of fall back into, oh my God, this isn't going to work. And you get into the doom and gloom of it, as opposed to going, I know what I'm talking about. This is uneasy because it's a stretch. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be just fine. And
It's
it's
so
going to be just
interesting though
fine.
because I feel like and I have this thought all the time. When someone like you, and I know even that is a setup when I say that, when there's someone like you, right? Because it means already I've set you apart from the standard or the everyday Joe Schmo girl next door. But when someone like you says, I had to grow into, being comfortable with what I saw and being comfortable with who I am. Break that down a little bit for me because I know for me, and I have to believe that most other people are this way. When you see the glossy picture on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn or the picture with the big name title, it's almost as if you're in a whole different stratosphere. It would be an impossibility for you to understand what little old me is going through down here and my insignificant job and I feel insecure in what I see in the mirror. Tell me what that feels like and what that looks like when you say, I had to grow into being just fine. I didn't wake up like that. I grew
No,
into it.
because at the end of the day, um, you get into a room and you might know that whatever is going on in that room, you have a strong reaction to. Like either you really, really like it, or you're like, this is the complete wrong direction. And we
Yeah.
shouldn't be going down there because of X, Y, and Z. And you know it in your spirit, but you don't have the confidence to speak it up in that room.
Mm-mm.
And so I can tell you a lot of times I'd be sitting in there going, this ain't
That
right.
ain't, that ain't
And
me.
I just sat there and said, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And then it failed. And then, then I'm mad at myself. I'm like, why didn't I say something
Why didn't you
about
speak
it
up?
before? So what I mean by I had to grow into it being just fine, I had to grow into being able to say how I felt about something based upon my experiences or based upon, what I know or the data that's on the page. Because in the advertising world, we say two things, or I say two things, especially when I'm dealing with my people. I said you have to always deliver what the client asks for. So if the client asks for this, you must deliver it. You also must deliver what is right and what you
Mm,
believe in. If that means you have to do double the work, you have to do double the work, because what the
yeah.
client is going to ask for sometimes is wrong, specifically when we're talking about multicultural marketing, specifically when we're talking about creating campaigns in and around LGBTQ and transgender, and specifically when we're talking about language for Hispanics and Latin America. There are some things that the client is going to ask you to do that may be wrong, but you can't tell them, no, you're wrong. You have to say, okay, if that's what you want, and you've got to put the plan together with everything in your mind, right? You've got to put it together, and
Yeah.
then you have to say, because this is what you asked for. But I really, really think that you need to go in this direction, and these are the reasons why. And you show them that 9 times out of 10, they're going to go with what is right versus what they ask
What
for,
they
because
asked
in
for.
some instances,
Which is a tough
you
position
don't.
to be in, especially in your position when you consider whatever your morals are, whatever your values are, whatever you really know is good for the culture and the community, right? Because culture and community can be wishy washy, can be different. But there's a
Correct.
lot of zeros attached to this client. And I can't blow it up. I can't. That does take some
Client is always
kahunas to
right.
walk in. Yeah. To walk in and
Client is always
say,
right. Yeah, so
that's a tough space to be in.
you have to grow into the confidence to be able to do that in a room,
Mm.
because you have to be confident. The one thing that my old client at Lexus, who's since retired, she was like, Ayiko can be 99.9% wrong with whatever fact she just spoke it, but she spoke it with such confidence that we all believe her.
Yes, it's so true. It's so, but I think there's a moment that happens for people. Like for me, I feel like it clicked when I was like in the third grade. I don't know why so early. I don't know why I was blessed to get that magic moment then that I was like, no matter what, this is what I believe and I will fight to the death and die on that hill. You know what I mean? What was your
Yes.
magic moment? What was your magic moment that you said, you know what, I got more power than I'm giving myself credit for?
I'm going to tell you
I'm ready to go, damn it.
where I actually realized it, right? Because there may be a moment when somebody else anyway, but I will say when I actually realized that, oh my God, I know what I'm talking about. Okay, and maybe less about power, but I know what I'm talking about. Is we fought, and when I say fought, we fought really hard to do the Black Panther
I was gonna say,
Lexus.
don't say Black Panther, because that they should have known.
So, I mean, there was a whole lot that was going on, but we had to, fight to get them to do it. And so we did it, and we did it in a way that was very methodical and all that. Now, even through all of that, even through every step that we went through with getting it filmed, getting the product in there, creating the, year-long plan to get it done, I still did not know that it was going to work, right? I still wasn't sure that everything that we fought for was going to actually work. So I'll never forget it. I was sitting next to my client, Mary Jane Kroll at Lexus, and we were sitting in the premiere. at the Black Panther, and like I said, we didn't know it was going to work until here. So we're sitting in the premiere, and we're watching the movie, and as we're watching the movie, we get to the part where the car is in the
Mm-hmm.
film,
Mm-hmm.
and then we both look at each other and we're like, "Oh my God, this is going to be huge. This movie is fantastic." And I could see both of us, our shoulders just kind of relaxed and said, "This is
Yes.
going to be fun ride." Because before that, we both knew instinctively it was the right thing to do. Because she was there fighting for me too, because she was a Marvel fan. She was like, we were in this together, but we didn't know it was going to work, and we didn't know what was going to kind of happen. And when we were sitting in that theater and we saw that, we're like okay. And that moment on, I started to really trust my gut. I
Yeah.
started to really trust what I was doing, and I knew that where we were in that moment validated all the moments kind of before that, right?
Wow.
Because those other projects were all great projects that just was not going to get kind of the mass of what this was. And in that moment, I knew, and she knew, and we knew that this was not a Black project. This was a global phenomenon in that moment. And when we were doing it, we had a feeling it was going to be a global phenomenon. But
And
we
what a
weren't
global
sure that
phenomenon.
it wouldn't just get regulated to a Black marketing effort. And while we were sitting there, we knew that it was going to be much more than that. But it validated all of my Black marketing efforts that I had done all along, because it proved to them and to the world
Yeah.
that our culture is not regulated to a segment. We
Mm.
are global. And when I walk into a room, I can walk into a room very boldly and specifically and say, Black people, we set the culture. We set the trends. Everybody
It's true.
follows us. What
It's so
we do,
true.
people follow. And couldn't I felt it, I knew it, but that right there gave me the validation
Seal the
to
deal.
really own it.
It's always those kind of moments that will define like what real success is to you and who you are in terms of your word and your value and your worth. And I think in order to understand that and really see it clearly, there has to be a juxtaposed position, right? So the
Yeah.
aha moment of, oh my God, like I'm fucking brilliant. I know it may not
Mhm.
seem that what I am. I also think that what we hide too often are the moments when you're by yourself and you feel like I've really blown my life up. Have you ever had one of those moments? And you don't have to be super personal to tell me what it is, but have you ever had that moment and
Um,
what got you through it?
I'd be lying if I said I didn't
I
have
had
that
some nice foods,
moment,
me, ice cream, and
or
tequila,
or
trying to
to
figure it
say
out.
that I did that I have had several of those moments, right? So there, you know, there was a movie that basically took. Oh, sorry, my lights went out. There was a movie that basically took. I think it was either a TV show or something like that. I can't remember that. Actually, had this person and from high school, and if he went one place, he had one life. And if he would have went to this, he had to make a decision. If he went over here with hang out with his friends, he'd have one life, and if he went over here, he would
It
have
was
another
something
life.
else.
Um, I truly believe that those are kind of some of the things that some decisions that I made kind of changed the trajectory of my life. And are some of them what I would say mistakes? Probably. If I were to like retrospectively look at it and say, you know, I could have been here or I could have done that if I just would have done one thing differently. Um, but at the end of the day, I have a I have a pretty amazing life, right?
Yeah, don't be afraid to say it. You got a fantastic life. I mean, ups and
I've
downs, of
done
course.
amazing things. I've had, everybody talks about me like, girl, you didn't done a million and one things. I worked in Silicon Valley. I worked for the airlines. I've had a
You've
million
done it
lives, right?
all.
And in all of those million lives, I don't know that I would. There are some things I would have done differently, but I've had an amazing experience, an amazing life, and I do pinch myself sometimes, like you know, Deanna and our good friends Kathy Hughes, right? She's also one of my five who have helped. Whenever I'm in a crossroads on a decision, I call Kathy and ask her what I should do. But I'll never forget this. I was flying and I got invited to one of Kathy's birthday parties, and we were going to Necker Island and had an amazing time after 4 days. And then I had to fly back home, and I had to look myself in the mirror and say, "This is not your life. That's Kathy's life." And she just let me know that for a little
You
while.
got to go to
But
work in the morning, girl.
but you don't you get used to this, because that's not who you are. But
Oh my gosh.
through relationships and meeting people, I've had an amazing. I have an amazing life, and there's a lot more to come.
Of
I'm not going to say
course.
the next 4.5, 5 years are going to be extremely difficult. I mean, we are moving into a very
Uncharted
difficult
territory for sure.
phase, and you know it's one thing when it's sometimes where it's in one sector that it's a little bit of an upheaval, but this is everywhere. Politics, marketing, I mean, DE&I mean, it is a swirl of, for lack of a better term, uncertainty,
Yeah.
on a bunch of levels. And at the end of the day, what we have to do as marketers is we have to continue to share with our clients that at the end of the day, what you're here to do is make money.
Hmm.
And you want to leave money on the table. And I think there's some people who are leaving money on the table.
But I think that goes back to what you said earlier, and that is you give the client what they want, but you also give them what they need so they can be able to look at the differences. 'Cause I think in a lot of cases, some people don't know till they know. I can remember early on in my career sitting in meetings, sales meetings, when I was just, I was doing the morning show and they wanted to bring me in, and I'm sitting with a potential client who's like, "Black people don't read." I'm like, are you kidding? And I'm sitting right here. Do you not see me? I'm a black degreed female. What do you mean I don't read? It was just the craziest thing. And obviously, we were able to present what they wanted, right? As if
Right,
black people don't read, but then also present the truth. And they chose, as
right.
you said, 90% of the time, "Oh yeah, this makes sense." And I'm sitting here wanting to scream at the top of my lungs, like, "How dare you?" But I knew decorum is
Yeah,
needed at the moment. I understand that. And I think we're moving into more of that because what?
yeah,
Everything goes in a circle. So there's nothing new under the sun. I think now it is a matter of how we approach it, how we handle it. Um, and I think that will determine the outcome. I think now is not the time to be shy about how we feel. Obviously, putting it into perspective in the way that we know it can be easily digested by some people who may not want to hear that, right? But I think now is the time to fight the good fight. I think now is the time to do good, as we've
mhm,
often heard. And I think being in your position, I can only imagine knowing how you feel as a woman of color, and having to
mhm.
fight these battles that, have always been, a Goliath, but now they're about to become, the woolly mammoth and the kraken. And I would imagine some days you wake up thinking, what giant will I have to slay today?
You know, it's funny because Aaron, my boss, Aaron Walton, he used to always, one of the things that I used to have conversations, and I would talk to Aaron about, which is that every morning, as somebody who works in multicultural marketing, every morning I have to justify my existence.
Mm.
Every morning we have to justify why we matter. Why do black people matter? Why do women matter? Why do Latino people matter? Why do gay people matter? Why do transgenders matter? And the conversation that is always irritating is that just because I'm black doesn't mean that I'm not a person. So every person matters. So if every person matters, then how I see things and the way I view things should also matter.
Mhm.
And um, justifying where some people can just say, oh yeah, we need to do commercials on TV, right? Because that's was quotes the main medium back in the day, right? We're a little beyond that, but we have to do commercials on TV. Yes, we admit that we do need to advertise our products, but why do we need to advertise our products specifically to Black people?
Yeah.
And why does it matter that it's in language for Hispanics? And why does a transgender person have to see themselves to relate with the brand? And that part is the part that gets frustrating
Yeah.
because you don't say the same thing when you are, advertising a toy. Do you say, when I'm advertising a toy, the child doesn't matter, doesn't need to be in the spot? When you're advertising for, eyeshadow, does it not matter that it's a woman? I mean, at the end of the day, the target of the product, it matters.
It matters.
That matters because you want to be able to make people see that this brand is for you. So if that matters, if age, gender, if those things matter, then who somebody is culturally should also
Should also
matter.
matter
And you
for
should
sure.
want to be inclusive of a brand to be able to show that I actually care that you buy my product.
Let me ask you this. Speaking of something that matters, what matters to Aiko today that didn't matter to her 20 years ago? What matters to
Uh,
you?
that's a good question. Because I've always been a little militant. So,
She always been a little Angela Davis.
you know what they say.
You know,
The biggest militant is the light skinned Black person.
always, always the loudest, the biggest
Always,
friend in the
always,
room.
always.
You're like, hey,
Um,
slow down.
I, I think, let me see, what would I say? That is a really, really good question. Um, I think I would probably say I'm a little bit more intentional about bringing others along,
Mm,
a little bit more specific about sharing information about how you do X, Y, and Z. I'm a little bit more, as opposed to keeping it all to myself or just, I'm a little bit more about making sure that we're sharing the information with somebody else and that I'm extremely intentional on who
I
I
think
look
that's
to
good.
hire. I'm extremely intentional about who I partner with. I'm always looking, before I would just look for, obviously I wanted to do things with endemic partners and Black owned business and stuff like that. But now I think I take it 2 or 3 steps further. It's not just putting them in the mix. It's like, no, I'm not looking at anything else. How do we continue the conversation about putting money back into our own community and how we are continuing to work with entrepreneurs and companies who are going to feed into us the way we're going to feed into them.
Correct.
It's more about a relationship and how you're going to continue to build a relationship. I think more so than ever, as opposed to being transactional.
I think that goes to also recognizing your power that we talked about earlier, right? Because you can think that, like we were talking about Deanna, how easy it was for her to just pick up a phone and just call. It was nothing. These are old friends.
Right.
I see them every Friday, whatever the case may be. But I think once you come into the fullness of who you are and you understand the power that you hold, especially in certain positions, with that title comes a lot of responsibility. So I think it's
Mhm.
incredible to recognize that yes, I will be more intentional, not just making sure that I do it in terms of sharing the information, sharing the platform, but I'm going to be intentional about where and who I share it with. Because as my grandmama would say, you don't throw pearls before swine.
Right.
So you have to be
Right.
intentional to make sure that the seed that you're fertilizing, that is it's good soil. right? So we
Exactly,
make sure
exactly.
we bring forth some good fruit. I think that's important. What do you see for yourself personally that you would like to do different in say like the next 5 years? Like for me, I keep saying I want to be multilingual. I want to be able to. I took French all through high school, all through college. All I can say is we. I got to do better.
Me
I
too.
got to do
Me too.
better. Oui.
I can say, wait, je suis? I think I can say
Je
je
suis,
suis.
je
That's
m'appelle. I can
it.
say that. I got to do
Yes,
better. So for me,
yes.
just really, and for me also, it's not just about learning the language, but I want to do it to be respectful and not walk this earth and just be one dimensional in my thinking as if I'm the only person on the planet and only English matters. I really want to be able to be multilingual so that I can break bread with someone who didn't come from, 37363 in Tennessee. I want to be able to walk through someone else's space and respectfully, be mindful of their culture and their language. For me, that's something very personal that I see for myself. What do you see for yourself in the next couple of years?
God, you went to a whole education on what you want to do, language and all that good stuff. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be purely selfish because what I see for myself for the next 4 or 5 years is for me to figure out. Uh, well, I'm gonna start with this. I was watching earlier today. One of our clients, PNC, did they did kind of a webinar with Damon John.
Okay. Oh yeah, yeah.
And one of the things that he was talking about was about, he said, everybody always asks me about how do you get work life balance, and he goes, it's not work life balance, it is, oh my god, I can't remember the word he used, but what he was basically saying is there isn't really a work life balance, it's a work life trade off kind of thing,
Ah.
where you might decide to do this and move that half hour here. What I would love to figure out for myself in the next 5 years, and I failed, but he said I got to set a goal. So I'm going to set a goal to figure out how to manage time better
Ooh.
in order for me to have time for me
I think
without
that's
it
great.
being time for me that is spent falling out, right?
Yeah.
Where's the time for me that is not about trying to hurry up and get some sleep because I'm tired?
Yes.
It's time for me that is intentionally about time for me, be it walking, be it
I
exercise,
love
be it
that.
reading a book, be it any of those things, because the time for me right now is falling asleep in front of a TV because the TV takes my mind off of the spin, and the spin is in my
That won't
mind for all
stop.
the that I have to do, and the TV takes that away for me to go to sleep. That's not actually real time for me.
Correct.
That's decompression so that I can get some sleep. So I'm trying to figure that part out. How do I set a goal and
Mm.
figure out where's the time for me? And
I think that's so
that's
important.
a
I don't, and you
hard
know what? You
place.
apologize for it in the beginning. Don't apologize. I think you should be selfish. I was watching a post that I don't know who posted it, but it was of Denzel Washington, and he talked about how he had to break the habit of grabbing the phone as soon as he opened his eyes. And he said, now what I do is when I open my eyes before I can think about anything, I thank God and I
Mhm.
sit in silence. And that is my time to think about and zone out and do whatever I want to. And I thought, wow, like if Denzel can do it, I can do it because he busy.
I'm gonna
But I
try
thought,
it. I'm gonna try
it's
it.
hard because I bet you're one of those people. The first thing you do when you wake up is reach for that phone. What phone calls did I
First,
miss? What email did I miss? What's on my calendar for the day? And I think
exactly.
again, you apologize because you're like, mine is a little bit more selfish. And for me, I
Mhm.
think that's one of the places that we as women, especially because men are naturally, innately
Yeah,
selfish,
yeah, 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 yeah,
inherently selfish.
yeah,
And
yes,
we are the
yes.
givers, the nurturers. We birth the babies, we breastfeed the babies, then we walk the babies, then we grow the baby. It's like it never stops for us. And then the baby can
Right.
turn into a job, a house, a
Correct.
car,
And
friendships, a
and
situation,
and
all
for
the
me, I
things.
I got a million babies. I got
Yes.
babies that are my accounts. I've got babies for the people who work underneath me. I've got babies who I've, you know,
You got
brought into.
grandbabies. You got great grandbabies.
I got a lot of kids, and trying to figure out how I feed all those kids
Yes.
um, every single day and make sure that they're being completely and totally nurtured. Sometimes I fail at that because I got a lot of kids.
Well, not only that, if you don't feed yourself, you can't feed them babies.
That
Okay.
that part right there is
That part
that's
right
a truth.
there. Listen, let
Yeah,
me tell
that
you something. This has been such an incredible conversation. I could go on and on and on and on and on, but you got all these babies and these grandbabies you got to take care of, honey. You got I get it. But I really want you to know that I see you so majestically, so beautiful, so smart, and you walk with it. You can if and I know it sounds like I'm blowing smoke, but the Lord knows my heart. I'm telling the truth. There are certain people who walk and you can literally see their crown. And it's not
uh,
crooked, it's just perfectly coiffed, and and they don't have to say anything. I think in the times that you and I have been around each other, you haven't said a whole lot. And you didn't need to. That's the beautiful thing about it. And it made it so more magnetic. I was like, I gotta talk to her. I wanna see what's inside. I want some of that. It's just so incredible. And if nobody ever tells you, if you've never seen it for yourself because you're so busy birthing these babies and taking care of these babies and getting them educated and all of the things, I'm telling you, I see you. It is so beautiful and spectacular that I wish there was a way someone could record it so that you yourself could see how you don't even walk, you just float in the room and everybody's looking like, oh, it's Ayiko. Oh, who is that? Oh, oh, oh. And it's just incredible. And I think everyone should have that moment in their life. I think everyone should be able to see it. I really do.
oh, Jasmine, you make me cry.
Oh, don't cry. It's the truth. I think everyone should hear that. And not to be, you know, I don't know, to sound like I'm just totally enamored and I'm wearing rose-colored glasses. I really mean it. And I think when we walk through life as women, we are often overburdened with all of the babies that we give birth to in the form of ideas, and we put people on and we're always looking out for other people, and sometimes we look over our shoulders and it's just us standing there and you're
Yeah,
wondering, how the fuck did I get here and where is my support system? I mean,
yeah,
and we keep going though. It's the
yeah,
magic of us finding the strength to just keep on, even when our own houses are falling apart, when our knees are aching and my back is hurting because I'm carrying all these babies because I got to make sure they're
mhm,
okay. And then I wonder, is anybody looking out for me? And again, that's
mhm.
one of the reasons why I wanted to do woman to woman conversations. And I got it from, I don't even remember, the Jones girls, I think. Back in the, no, who was it? She said, "Hello, Barbara, this is Shirley." And it was
Oh
a
yes,
woman
yes,
to,
yes. Woman to
yes,
woman.
it was a
Yes,
woman to
yes, yes,
woman
yes, yes, yes.
conversation. But I wanted it
Yes.
to be more about, let's talk about the truth of what it's like when all these lights are off, and the phone ain't ringing for this hot second. And I'm in my
Yeah.
moment in my pajamas thinking, how am I gonna make it? Are the lights gonna be on tomorrow? And I mean metaphorically speaking, like,
Yeah.
am I
Obviously, yeah.
gonna be okay? And when I make it down the road, will I be proud of the work that I've done? And I feel
Hmm.
like in many ways your answer will be yes.
Yes, and the one thing that I will say is, you know, I've the one thing I can say is in through all of this journey, even when it was dark, I never felt that I was alone. And here's the reason
Mm.
why. I never felt that I didn't have that support system, but because of people like Deanna and Kathy and my good friend Angie and my friend Helen and my group of people, no matter where I am or no matter how dark it could be on either side of whatever, I know that those people have my back and have always had my back. And I know that if I ever need them, all I got to do is pick up the phone. And I've got a support system around me that is going to catch me if I fall. And I think some people may have that, but don't know that they have that
Mm.
because the people who are around them, either one, have never had to do it, or two, haven't been vocal enough or don't feel them enough in that presence. But I feel mine every day because let me just be clear, them heifers will tell me off in a minute.
Bitches will get you straight.
They will go, you need to take several seats, okay? You've been doing way too much,
Way too
and you need to
much.
do X, Y, and Z. So, you need the one thing that we as women is you have a group that you can rely on. And I have a very, very strong personal group that keep me 100% grounded and allow me to. And I'm also going to put Mr. Walton in even though he's Mr. Walton, he's also one of them girls that will keep me
That keep
grounded.
you grounded.
Keep me grounded, because at the end of the day, he pushes, but he also has always been somebody who, if I have an idea, that he will let it fly. And you don't always often get that with a boss. You don't get that with, every person doesn't have that unique experience where they have somebody who is their boss,
Yeah.
who allows them to fly. And he has given me the ability to fly. There's no idea that I might throw on the table that he won't one listen to and help figure out how to make happen if it is the right thing to do for the client.
I
And
love that.
so,
I love that. But
having
I think
that.
that's why I said woman to woman conversations. They're so important so that even if, you might be one of those people that you have that sisterhood around you, but you haven't vocalized when you need it, right? Or
Correct.
maybe you need to work on being a better sister. And the people
Correct.
who are waiting for you to say, hey, all you have to do is pick up the phone call. I think these types of conversations hopefully encourage that and shine the
Mhm.
light on the sentiment that I have from the very beginning, and that is, I think it's important that when your sisters walk by, you acknowledge them. You acknowledge
Mhm.
them in all of their beauty and all of their value and their worth. I think you do that because I think when we do that collectively, to me, that is where Black Girl Magic starts. It's not the
I
things that
agree.
we do; it's the spark, the alchemist sort of spark that happens when we reach out and touch one another. The magic
Mhm.
that comes from that, to me, is incredible. And I think it starts woman to woman.
Yeah, the collective power.
Yeah. I love it. There you
Mhm.
go. Girl, you can market that. That'll be $25,000. Thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule. I hope
Thank
to
you,
continue
Jasmine,
to
for
see
having me.
you. I am just honored to say that you're someone that I know and to call friend. And just continued success to you, and everything that you touch turns to gold. That's what I
Thank
hope
you,
for you.
Jasmine.
Everything that you
Thank you,
touch.
Jasmine. This was delightful. Thank you so much for
All we
having me.
needed was a little wine. Now wait till I get off of here and go call Deanna and tell her that you said. No, I'm just playing. I'm gonna call her right
Trust
now,
me.
girl. Let me tell you
Trust
what she
me.
said.
She said, seriously, we still telling the shade conversation? Yes.
I
We'll
love
tell it
it.
forever.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Jasmine. Bye.
Bye.